I've been a builder developer for 35 years downriver, done a lot of self-storage, homes, car washes, you name it. But we got into the cannabis industry about 3 years ago because I had an older brother who got Lou Gehrig's disease, and the University of Michigan put him on a marijuana pill that kept his calorie intake up and his stress level down. So since then, we've been approved in Westland. We were one of 35 applicants to develop on Cherry Hill. We just recently, may have seen us on the news, we applied in Riverview, Michigan. We're the first in line. We bought the old Slip Mahoney's Bar. It's all over the news now. And I know all about the setbacks and requirements as a builder and in the cannabis industry. We bought the old Top Gun building, the Bone Arrow place, because we knew it was an I-2. This was medical marijuana, was already approved here. And then they wanted to see, well, do we want to approve adult use too? Then they stopped it all because the council couldn't agree on it. And I just think that we had no chance. I never heard any reason that we could call the planning commission and even have comments. This is the first we heard. I heard about this last night because there was a city council meeting, and we were going to go to that, thank God. The reason the city council pushed it down the road was to give planning a chance to make tweaks to the ordinance, in my opinion, because there's no way nobody's going to invest millions of dollars in the city with the available lots that maybe, I saw two, and they're in the nasty areas of an industrial area. Now, the people here need their medicine, or if they just want adult use, but they don't want to have to travel down an alley to get it, right? They can go to other communities to get that. When they voted for it the second time to approve it, they did it because they want to have access to it. And now I'm all about controlling it and starting slow. So we thought, yeah, start in that I-2 district and keep it, 1,500 feet away from, the 2,500 number, I don't know where they came from. We went to all the council meetings. It seemed like the last meeting, because they had to do something, because the citizens voted for it, they put 2,500 feet on it. Thank God we're here discussing it tonight, because I think you got a great opportunity that you can tweak it so you're not going to get lawsuits, because the way it's written, I can see them coming a mile away, and you're going to limit it to certain areas. Now, let's have a reasonable ordinance. I mean, 2,500 feet, guys. I do zoning every day, whether it's for self-storage facilities, like I said, or warehouse buildings. I went on the zoning map long ago. I looked at every single area, and if it was me, I would suggest putting it on the industrial zones of the corners of the city. You got a couple on the north side, you got one where we're at even, on the south side, which is perfect. We're next to a gun range, a dump, a dog pound, and we're half a mile within almost like 100 foot of being next to a school that sits 450 feet back off the road. Does that make sense to common sense people? You're all working class people like us. We're pleading our case to you guys. This is ridiculous. We want to invest. We have beautiful renderings. We're professional business people. It has to be written in a sense where somebody can actually come in and do it in an area that makes sense. Ours is a perfect example of an area that makes sense, but there's others too, because I know the people in the industry, I know people in the audience that have been waiting and following this, and we're just paying our taxes, keeping our buildings clean, and waiting for some common sense ordinance to be written where you can still have control. You can always add later, but there's no way you're going to have anybody growing in buildings. Number one, growing, there's going to be a moratorium on the state. There's too many grows. There's too many processors. They just want retail. We want to have a nice place in an industrial area that's clean and lit. So, tonight, after listening it and seeing the ordinance, we knew the council, the majority, all but 2 members, voted, for the 2,500 feet. That was ridiculous. We all went, come on, we all know this isn't going to work in the industry, guys. They don't want it here. I even spoke with Laura before, and you admit, they don't want it here. So they'll make it as difficult as you can. My time's up.
It would seem to me, though,
Yes, sir.
that the citizens of the city of Taylor are the ones that can say yes and say no.
but to
door.
vote on it the way it was written, because it wasn't like they had options.
But it didn't say property line to property line or structure to structure in that ordinance.
It said 2,500 feet, but that was open to it. Maybe one or two businesses would even meet that criteria. The point was, if they would have said, no, they said, that, it's over, God, we got our way, they're not gonna be in the city. They wrote it to the point where it wouldn't make sense for anybody. I mean, they had to say yes, and then we knew we were gonna have to come in front of everybody and say, guys, come on, this isn't written to work for anybody. Doesn't make sense for anybody to invest $3 to $5 million in your city if you're gonna stick us in, the gutter.
Stewart has something to say.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you, Mr. Chairman. Through the chair to all those of interest, I think
Oh,
it's
thank you.
important that this planning commission has been probably over 2 years ago. We began and were asked by the council to develop some recommendations. And over a course of a number of months, not only taking through general council, let's say, pattern ordinances from other cities and so on, and through our planning director, we tried to develop what would be the standard in the industry, but the best practices of the industry. And so we came to a reasonable consensus that we then turned over to city council. What is incumbent of this planning commission, though, is to be bound by what was on the ballot. And what was on the ballot is fairly simple language, a single paragraph. And then the ordinances that we're reviewing today is far more detailed than what was on the ballot. But we are bound to make a recommendation what was on the ballot. And as I understand through the chair to Laura, we can make recommendations that may alter what this ordinance says, but we can't alter what was voted on. So our bear with me, and we went to what was on the ballot, and I think our charge is to either vote yes or no on what we've been given to look at, or forward it with recommendations, but not to change exactly what was said on the ballot. So it's not a matter of us voting, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, either council or chairman or Laura, our job here is to either forward this back to council with a recommendation of yes on everything, or we forward it back to the council with some recommendations for some changes, but not altering the very simple language that was on the ballot. So that's our charge. We want to hear everyone's thoughts and opinions, but we are bound by, and we are bound by the citizens certainly above all else, but the citizen has voted for it. So what we need to do is hear what you have to say, and then either we will vote a complete yes to go back to council, or we'll vote yes with some other recommendations. Am I right in that?
Mr. Chair, I just want to remind everyone that it does state in these ordinances that city council has the right to change the ordinance. This isn't an ordinance, it's a draft.
It's a
Until they get an ordinance to change, this is the draft. You can make recommendations all day long, but every time this ordinance changes, it will have to go through the process again.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart.
In simple terms, what Commissioner Stewart was saying is that our mission here is we don't create the law, we don't vote the law, that's the council. We make recommendations on zoning, planning, building design. This ordinance is basically for us to review from a planning and zoning standpoint. And also, the other thing that's been discussed up here is the 2,500 foot distance. That was voted in by the voters. We cannot change that here. This is something that could be recommended back to council. They could take another look at it, put it on the ballot. Whatever the legislature can do to handle it. And some additional definition